Welcome to Kofi Piesie TV.
So please subscribe to the channel now.
All right, yeah, so y'all please go subscribe to the channel now. First, I want to say peace and Black African power. Welcome back to Kofi Piesie TV. I am Kofi Piesie. Today we're gonna let me change this camera real quick. All right, so today we're gonna get into a conversation, man. Conversation about the public schools, man. It's everybody kind of know if everybody been following me for a while, everybody kind of know my stance on the school system. I try not to disrespect it too much, but it disrespect us and it disrespect our kids. So I always call it the food system. So today we just gonna have a conversation about the public school system. We're gonna have a conversation about homeschooling and what does homeschooling look like. How do you set up homeschooling? How do you withdraw your kids from how you withdraw your kids from the school system? But we're gonna get into that in a minute, man. First, before we do that, let's do this. If you don't have beautiful lessons about Kimoyo, this is a publication I put out maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago. Is a publication about for people that may not know, African spirituality or African traditional religion is what we're calling what is Kimoyo. So we're getting away from those terms and we're using Kimoyo. So I break down what Kimoyo is, where do we get this term from, and just to walk you through the different elements of what makes up Kimoyo, or what y'all call African traditional religion or African spirituality. This is another installment right here. It's called Spearmasters, a historical slavery in the minds of African warrior scholars, Volume 4. This is our publication we put out, I think, about a year ago. It was inspired by the Dinka people of in the Sudan. Great publication. Go get that book if you hadn't got that publication. It's a collective work by the group, Kofi Piesie Research Team. Go get Chavis, who's also a member of Kofi Piesie Research Team. He has a great publication out called Religious Belief, Revisit the Hesed edition. Go get that publication if you hadn't got that publication. I think it was dropped about a year ago, so go get that publication. Also, we dropped a collective effort where we got inspiring writers, or those who have been writing articles, and we got them to be a part of this project called the Spearmasters Institution. We have an institution for children and teenagers where we'll be putting out products for the teenagers, and we'll be putting products out for the kids. This is actually a product for the teenagers, but also could be for the adult. Spearmasters Institution. This is a comprehension book. It has different stories within each chapter, and behind that chapter is questions. We're trying to raise the comprehension level of our kids. So this is a publication that we put out this year called Spearmasters Institution, Comprehension Book 1. There'll be some more coming out pretty soon, maybe at the top of 2023. Also, this is another Spearmasters Institution coloring book 1. There'll be more coloring books coming out. This is a learning coloring book. I created 3 characters, Chi-Inki, Kojo, and Albina. Those are 3 characters within the book who are narrating this book and who's actually helping your children learn about the different animals that they're coloring within the wildlife. So as they're coloring, they're also learning. So this is another great publication for your children. This is between the ages of, I think, 6 and 12, somewhere around there. Great book. We put that out December or November of last year. So go get that publication as well. Also go get Sean's. I need to put his other book on here, but go get Sars. We still in the pandemic. So what Sars COVID taught me. If you don't understand about what COVID is, what COVID-19 is, if you don't understand the immune system, you don't understand the misinformation, you know, this is a great book for you. I read this book from top to bottom. You know what I'm saying? It's heavily sourced with information from epidemiologists, virologists, biologists, and etc. So go get that book as well. All these publications are on our same three different brands. But Sean also has another book out called The Coming of Islam, Bilal El Sudan. So go get that publication. And I gotta put Ben's publication on here as well. He has a book called Is African Spirituality a Religion, which was dropped a few weeks ago. If you don't have that publication, please go get that publication as well. I'm still pushing the new independent African Academy. I hadn't put up the codes of conducts and the mandates right now. I'm still trying to work on that, far as putting that back on and earning y'all thing, because I know talking about the codes of conducts, when I'm putting them up here and talking about the codes of conducts, some of our achievements and some of the things that we're trying to achieve with the new independent African Academy, to set ourselves aside from those other people. We kind of got involved in a lot of the stuff that contradicts some of the stuff that we was actually saying when I'm talking about these codes of conduct. So until we earned our respect back to the people, I won't be putting this up here, because we have contradicted ourselves, even though I may have not participated in it. But those who were saying that they was a part of the new independent African Academy, they may have participated in some, some bad character, like, or getting involved or getting pulled into certain things. So like I said, I'll be putting those codes of conducts and hoping we'll be able to get more people on board, serious people on board, and doing what we got to do to help better this online community, but also facilitate something for our children. But again, if go get the new Independent African Academy t-shirts. Now that I got that out of the way, let's get into it. Let me do this. I want to go on the chat. Y'all, please like and share the show. Please like and share the show. Damn. Hold on. Let me take this off here, y'all. Let me go back. Okay. So like I said, man, today we'll be, we're having a conversation, and hopefully some more people could be able to get into the conversation. But we're going to be talking about the public school system. So let me do this. Let's slide here. Do this. Okay, so the name of the show is public school. Is the public school teaching lies, and is it best to home school? Let me make this broader. All right. So everybody know that follow me. This is my logo. This is my phrase. I live by this phrase. Stand by this. As I learn, we all learn. And if you want some as I learn, we all learn gear, go to our Mboka-Family Connect Apparel to get you a hat, a shirt, a pair of pants, or socks. I have the slides available soon, possibly this afternoon. But go copy some as I learn, we all learn gear. The outline for the show is public schools. Is the public school failing our children? What is the public school designed for? Was the public school designed for us to fail? Homeschools, homeschooling laws. You know what I'm saying? We'll briefly talk about that too, because for people who are interested in homeschooling their children, there are certain guidelines that that you do have to follow. You know what I'm saying? Homeschool curriculums. We'll kind of talk about that. Afrocentric curriculums. And we'll talk about some of those online groups that support, or these supporting groups for people who are interested in homeschooling their own children. How to withdraw from public schools, because there is a way. If you want to homeschool your young children, how we'll talk about how you can withdraw, or how they look like withdrawing your children from these public schools. Teachers forced to teach lies, and I put that up there, and I don't know. I'm saying teachers forced to teach lies, but even some of the teachers, I'm saying, they believe some of the information that they was taught through some of these institutions that we all went to. We all received certain degrees, I'm saying, and accolades from, I'm saying. So, but some teachers do know that a lot of this information that they are teaching to the children are actually you know what I'm saying, lies. ADHD, we're going to talk about that because that affected my home some years back. ADHD and what are they, what, you know, what is the reasoning behind them diagnosing your kids, especially your young kids, as ADHD. So we're going to talk about that because I was that strategy was trying to be pushed in my household at one time, and I had to kill that about the ADHD and putting my son on some medicine and taking him over here to get this, and then maybe trying to put all because he was over hyper. But we'll get into that and we'll explain that in the money that they get behind this ADHD and them putting them in certain programs, which leads to the prison pipeline. We're going to talk about the prison pipeline too, as well. Online schooling support groups, which we'll I pull up some of those groups. I'm gonna just say be careful with some of the groups that I pull up when I talk about the online schooling support groups, because some of those support groups, when you look at some of those curriculums, I wouldn't want some of my kids teach. I mean, I wouldn't want some of my kids, you know what I'm saying, being taught some of that stuff, because even within what we call in the woke community or the conscious community, you know, you still have people who are not genuine. And some of their research can be biased, or people research backwards, you know what I'm saying, or don't understand how to properly research or understand research methodology and what goes into research methodologies and the different methods behind those different things. So still in the woke community, the conscious community, we still push misinformation, just like the school systems push misinformation. So you know, so like I'm saying, you have to be very careful with that and be selective with what some of these homeschooling support groups, you know, you will want to support from, or even pulling from some of their curriculums. And I'll also be talking about one support group, or this lady who has some textbooks that she created to withdraw her kids from some school. But we'll talk about her too, because we're gonna read. I'm gonna read something from Carter G. Wilson book, the misinformation. I mean, the miseducation of the Negro. So we're gonna read a few pages from out of that book, and then we're gonna go to the articles. The articles I have already in the description. Those articles in the description are some of the articles that we're gonna read. We're probably gonna read all of them. I might breeze through a couple of those articles. One article in Pacific, it kind of touched on a broader things that I have talked about in the past with other parents. I talked about with them, with some of my co-workers, with me, you know what I'm saying, voicing my opinion and my thoughts and my concerns dealing with the public school system, or the food system, as what I would call them, how they are failing our kids, and how it was set up, you know what I'm saying, to empower one group of people, you know what I'm saying, and make another class of people, you know what I'm saying, subservient to those people that they are inspiring, you know. So we're going to talk about those things, and these things have been talked about way before I even, you know, even existed as well. So we're going to get into Carter G. Wilson thing. Let me pull it up. I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna come out of these. So, but this is the outline. So these are some of the things that we'll be talking about today in the show. Um, I'll put the link um the chat in a minute, and for people that may want to come on and participate in the conversation, you're more than welcome to come on and participate in the conversation. But if you're going to participate in the conversation, you know what I'm saying, please be respectful when you come on to the panel. You know what I'm saying, I respect your voice, I respect your opinion. You know what I'm saying, I'm just saying that just in case we may disagree, we can disagree to disagree, you know what I'm saying? But please just come on and be respectful. You can disagree, you can agree, you can have your own opinion versus my opinion. So, you know, let's get into it. You know, they be scared to hop on, Kofi. I hope they do, man. You know, I hope I do. I mean, I think it's a good conversation. Let me come out here. Let me remove this. Let me go to, matter of fact, before I even do that, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in here, because I know once I get to talking, I'm probably not gonna look back at the chat right now. So let's just do this. Copy. And I'm gonna put it in here real quick. All right. So I got it in there. So peace to Sister Thea. Peace, sister. Peace to my brother Ali Dawuel. Peace to brother Sutek Akandi Uyani Olawa. Peace to Vasalo Nicolo Gullah. Peace to Sister Honey Clark. Peace to African Renaissance TV. And peace to whoever else that may be looking, and observing and not speaking in the chat. But y'all please like and share the show. All right. I'm gonna share my screen. Share screen. And we're gonna go over here. We're gonna go to let me see if this in here. This is right here. All right, let me know when y'all see my screen. I know it's a delay, but I ain't gonna start until I think, till somebody tell me they see my screen. Is my screen sharing, y'all? I guess not. Hold on. Let me see something. Man, I thought it was sharing. Oh, that's why it's not sharing. Hold on. All right. Should be sharing now. Let's go here. All right, let me know now if it's sharing. It should be sharing. I thought I would hit the yes share button. But if y'all hadn't subscribed, man, please go subscribe to the channel, man. If y'all hadn't subscribed, please subscribe. But like I said, we're gonna be reading a couple of pages, just a couple of pages from Carter G. Wilson book. This is The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Wilson. For those who may not know who Carter G. Wilson is, Carter G. Wilson is author. He's a scholar, one who would say who is the father of Black History Month, which started out as a day in February, then expanded to a whole month. And for other people that may want more information about Carter G. Wilson and his story on how he grew up and how and his various publications that he put out. And dang, there was something real quick I want to do real quick. Let me go back because I want to read something from his let's see if it'll let me do it. Boom, boom. All right, let me go here. I want to read a quote. This is a quote that I've been using for years. I'm gonna make sure that it's back up here. Okay, this is a quote that I've been using for years, right? And it's called, and I use just a piece of it. I don't always say the entire quote that he has, but this is one of his famous quotes that I use. And this quote actually inspired me to actually fight back against the school system fight back against the school that my son was going to. My son was going to a school for years called Wesley. And this school, I think my son went there maybe 4 or 5 years before we moved, right? And I seen a lot of stuff that was going on with this school that I didn't like, right? And majority of the school, it had Black students and it had brown students, but it had white students as well. But majority of the students there were Black, and you had brown students or Mexicans who went to the school, right? And this quote actually inspired me to actually dig in to do more research, actually pick up Carter G. Wilson book and read it because I had it for a few years but never picked it up. I was doing reading other material at that time. I think at that time the majority of the material I was reading was about Kemet. Everybody know I'm also a member of the group, the Seshuma Ani Metanecha. So at one time my focus and my studies was strictly on Kemet and understanding the language and the writing script, right? So but but going on, I picked the book up, I read the book, I was inspired by this quote, and then I began to fight back against the school system. So I would go to the school system on occasions, and the school system, which we'll talk about a little bit later, because this school system also, when we talk about ADHD, not only just this school, but schools in general, especially children of color, they try to diagnose our kids with ADHD, right? But this, and we'll get into that because that's later on down the line when we get into the ADHD part of the things, and the research that I did on it, and how I nipped it in the bud, with this school. But this school, Wesley, got very, very familiar with who I was, because I stayed up there at the school, and I stayed on the principal and the vice principal Nick, about certain things that was dealing with my son, and certain material that they was bringing home to my son, that I just feel like he should, that he should be told the truth about. And I'm telling him the truth about certain things, and then him, going to school and kind of regurgitating some of the things that his dad has taught him, that a lot of this information is far off or far-fetched or lies, So, if they would bring home information about George Washington told no lies, you a lie. He did tell lies. He also was a slave owner. He also raped women that looked just like my mother. He passed women that looked like my mother on to his colleagues. So I would teach my son a lot of these things. So it got to a point to where when they would bring stuff home for projects for him to do, the curriculum that they had for the kids, they would actually kind of get my permission if I wanted my son to do this, or I could give my son certain things when it was certain projects that had to be done. So I would, be in control of some of the information that my son is, getting, So, man, I gave, the school hell. And then, I gave them hell when they tried to diagnose my son with ADHD and put him in his program, and then try to get him in special ed, all because of him being overly hyper. But me doing my research, and not only with that school, with other schools, how they would misdiagnose kids for ADHD, try to get them on this medicine, right? And then put them in these programs, which when they put them in these programs, the school get more funding. Each kid get funding for the school, and we're going to talk about that. But it's according to what state and what county you in, is how much money that the school actually get for each student. And when they diagnose your kids with ADHD, I'm gonna just kill that. We're gonna get back into that later on, because we're gonna get into how they make money, and then we're gonna get into how some of these programs are also the pipeline for the prison. But anyway, philosophers have long concealed, however, that every man has two educators, that which is given to him, and the other that which is given himself. One of those two kinds of later is by far the more desirable. Indeed, all of the most worthy in men he must work out and conquer for himself. It is that which constitute our real and best nourishment. What we are merely taught seldom nourishment the mind like that which we teach ourselves. And like I said, I was inspired by this quote because Carter G. Woodson was stating, and we do. Most of us are giving two education. One that is given to us, and that is what is given to us. By law, in each state, by law, your parents must enroll you into school to get an education. This is the law. So we would go to these schools. They would enroll us into these public schools because it was law for us to go to school, for our parents to. So, this was why as sometimes you would see, if you miss so many minor days, then, in certain districts, they could get the police involved and have the police at your mother's door, concerned of why your kids are not going to school, because this is a law. This is a law. So, so this was a law. So it's one education that was given to us by the public school, and then another education that we give to ourselves. Once we find out, and majority of the people that's in the chat right now, a lot of these people are wanting the truth. So now they are unlearning what they was learned with their first education, and now they're getting a second education and learning, the real historical record. They are learning how, you know what I'm saying, to compute data, to understand data. They are learning how to, discern real information from misinformation. So we are relearning, we are learning, we are getting that second education. So, like I said, this quote by Carter G. Wilson, it's really a powerful quote if you look at it, and it inspired me to combat Wesley School when my son was going to school there for many years. And that school got to know me very well and began to let me dictate some of the stuff that my son was actually learning, and I could actually give them some of the material that I wanted my son, especially when it came to like certain projects and billboards and stuff that he had to do, when they would give the kids, okay, this is what we're giving you. Boom, boom, boom. We want you to learn this, that, and the third, right? But with me, it was a little bit different. They tried to keep me from coming to the school because I stayed at that school, y'all. I stayed at that school. So, but now that we got that out the way, you know what I'm saying? I wanted to make sure that I, start to show off before I start talking about information, with Carter G. Wilson quote. And it's another quote that I may pull up that actually inspired me, which is also true. And I see it in real time, you know. And okay, but back to this. If y'all can see my screen, let me know if y'all can see this page 12 of Carter G. Wilson book, The Miseducation of the Negro. You should be able to see it. If not, y'all let me know. Can y'all see the page? Yeah, I got on their nerves, bro. I'm telling you, man. I got on their nerves. They hated to see me come. They hated to see me come. Let me know if my screen's still sharing. If it ain't, let me do this. I'm gonna go back. It says sharing. Okay, let me go back over here. Add. All right. There you go. All right, there you go. There you go. All right, so let's talk about it real quick. So, I said, and I'm just proposing a question. I'm proposing a question. Some may know, some may not know, right? So, was the school system, is the school system failing our kids? I want to see, where people at. So, for the people in the chat, are are the public school system failing our kids? Two questions. And was the school system designed for our children to fail, or designed for us to fail? Was it designed to empower another group of people, and was it designed to make another group subservient to the people that they're trying to empower? Was it created by design? So, and I'll start reading in a minute once I get a few questions. We got 19 people watching, so can we get at least a few people participating, at least 4 or 5 people? So again, the question is, and this is to the chat: is the public school system failing our kids? And was the school system designed to empower another group of people and make another group of people subservient to the people that they are trying to empower? Brother brother Jehudi Ma'at, Peace Hotel Jama. Not only public schools, but uninvolved parents. Okay. I can agree with that. Uninvolved. Cause we're going to talk about that too, the uninvolved, especially when we get to the homeschooling part of it, right? Yeah, on multiple. Vasa Nicolo Gullah, peace, brother. He says yes on multiple levels. And when I be asking questions, I'm asking questions. The questions are not to insult anybody's intelligence. The questions is not to see who's right and wrong. It just get people involved, because if we don't know, and it's nothing wrong with being wrong. I don't, I don't consider myself to be right all the time. You know what I'm saying? And for those who you deem themselves to never be wrong, I say run far away from those individuals. You know, if you around somebody that's always right, you know what I'm saying, please get away from them. Run far, far away from those individuals. But Brother Sutek Akandi Uyane Olawa, he says it's failing us and was designed based on the Eurocentric standard. Okay, I can agree. I appreciate Brother Sutek. I appreciate Brother Vasa. I appreciate Brother Jehudi Ma'at. You know what I'm saying, for answering the he talking about his little Bubba birthday. Okay, tell let Bubble man happy birthday, Vasa, man. Tell your little young when I say happy birthday. But let's get into it, man. So, how we drifted away from the truth. How then did the education, let me pull my mic closer to me. All right. So again, it says, how did the education, and this is from page 12, how we drifted away from the truth. How then did the education of the Negro take such a trend? The people who maintained schools for the education of certain Negroes before the Civil War was certainly sincere, and so were the missionary workers who went south to enlighten the freedmen after the results that conflict had given the Negroes in the new status. I'm gonna stop right there real quick, and I may stop, you know what I'm saying, as I'm reading some of these things, you know what I'm saying, and kind of break some of this stuff down. And I think Carter G. Wilson book was revised a lot of times. And I think the first publication, and I could be wrong, and I'm saying I could be wrong, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because there are so many different versions of the book, which it has been nothing but revised. More information may have been added to the book, or some information may have been taken out of the book, and some information may have been corrected in the book. When we talk about revised, that's why you may see different revised copies, or you may see the book go out of publish, another publishing company pick it up, and they publish the book themselves. And that's something that I'm hopefully trying to get in later on, in a few years, that some of the publications of these published going out, maybe we can get a hold of those manuscripts and republish them through our publishing company, distribute them through our publishing company. But going back here, it says, did the education Negro take such a trend? The people were maintained schools for the education of certain Negroes before the Civil War. Certainly sincere, it was so were the missionary workers who went south to enlighten the freedmen after the results of the conflicts had given the Negroes a new status. And what he's talking about, and for a lot of people that may not know, I talked about this a while back here when I talked about the HBCUs, right? And I said that a lot of those HBCUs are owned by European people, right? And I broke down how some of those schools were started in Atlanta, started in South Carolina, North Carolina, I think Florida, a few other places where a lot of those, before you get to those HBCUs, those supposed to be historical Black colleges, which were founded by Europeans, and I explained and even showed documentation, you know what I'm saying, and sources on the material of why on who founded and why they founded these institutions, you know what I'm saying, these historical Black colleges who are owned by Europeans. And when we talk about going down south, or in those areas in particular, a lot of our people who came out of slavery, you know what I'm saying, years later, we begin to develop our own institution or our own philosophies on, we believe that in order to make great men and women, you know what I'm saying, they must be educated. And those who proceed to get an education at this particular time when it wasn't popular, or Black people in droves were not being educated. So those who were granted to go to these institutions or go to these churches, which I'm going to talk about, their duty was to come back. And this is the reason why I use the phrase and coined the phrase, as I learn, we all learn, which goes back to also a phrase of each one teach one, right? So it was their duty to teach those in their community because they believed that an education, those who had an education, this would make better men and women, and this will bring them out of the situation that they were in because they believe highly in education and intellectual men and women. So when you go back and you look down south, you begin to see churches. And I talked about one church in particular that was started, and another church in particular started in Atlanta. I mean, churches that actually in their basements, they began to teach Black people of color. They began to educate the Black people of color. This is before we start getting to these big institutions, which we'll talk about later. So a lot of our education also comes from those who would be what they call abolishers. You know what I'm saying? Quakers. These people who would help try to facilitate and educate those freemen or free women. So they will educate them in their churches. This was some of the first, also one of the methods of the development of educating Black men was in the basement of some of these white European churches when we talk about down south. And some of these churches and these people who was involved in it, then you start to get these other institutions, Spelman and etc., Morehouse, all these others, HBCUs. But a lot of it, when you go back and you look in the historical record and you dig up things, a lot of the founding fathers was also involved in some of the early development of educating some of these freemen in their churches, which spread it to North Carolina, South Carolina, and some parts of Florida. So that's what he's kind of hinting to there. These earnest works, however, more Thus acknowledged, they did not understand the task before them. This undertaking was more of an effort towards social uplifting and actual education. Their aims, therefore, is a Negro not to develop them. The freedmen who were to be enlightened were given a little thought for the best friends of the race. Ill taught themselves, followed by the traditional curriculum of the times, which did not take the Negro into consideration except to condemn or pity him. In geographical, the race were described conformity with the program of the useful propaganda to engender in the whites a race hate of Negroes and the Negro contempt themselves. A poet distinction was selected, illustrated by physical features of the white race of beckoning chiefs of groups, those of the red, proud warriors, and brown, the Prince Yellow, and the savages with a ring in their nose. And of course, the Negro stood at the foot of the social ladder. The description of the various parts of the world was worked out according to the same plan. The part inhabited by the Caucasians were treated in detail. Less attention was given to the yellow people, still less to the red, very little to the brown, and practically none to the Black race. Those people who were far removed from the physical characteristics of the Caucasians, or who do not materially assist them in the domination or exploitation of others, were mentioned except to belittle and derived. From the teaching of the science of Negroes was likewise eliminated. The beginning of science in various parts of the Oriental was mentioned, but the African early advancement in the fields was omitted. So he's talking about some of the things that's being taught in the school system, or some things that was omitted, especially when it comes to the African American, right? And our history. So a lot of stuff, a lot of things that we contributed to the world, of our ancestors contributed to the world, it was omitted out of these textbooks. It was omitted out of these institutions. It was omitted out of these schools, and they are still omitted out of this public school system to this day. A lot of contributions that our ancestors contributed to the world, they are not talking about these things in school, because again, the school system was designed to empower another group of people and to make another group of people subservient. So if you go back and you look at where some of these curriculums started, it is a European standard. It's a Eurocentric standard. It is a standard, right? So they have to omit the things that we contributed because they're not targeting. We are not the targeting people that they're trying to target to empower. So therefore, when you go into school, when they start talking about Greek civilized the world, hence the word civilization, right? When we go back and look in the historical record, we know that there were people who civilized way before you get to a Greek or a Greek language or a Greek civilization. Africans had civilizations before you get to a Greek, but they'll tell you that Greeks civilized the world. They'll show you a lot of these Greeks monuments, or they'll even tell you, damn, I can't even think this other group that I read about all the time, especially when I was in college. They would talk about them all the time, civilizing the world, or they was the ones who came up with writing and not, but they say it with the Greeks, but I can't remember the other group at this time. So it was omitted, you know what I'm saying? So our contributions was omitted and still omitted to the day. Again, you have to understand when you go back and you look, the education system comes from out of a Eurocentric thought. Once the Emancipation Proclamation was passed and we was freed, and then but you did have people when he started talking about people going down south, you had the abolishers, the Quakers, and etc. who were trying to teach, but still they was teaching it from a Eurocentric standard. So when we start talking about some of our heroes during the 20th century, a lot of those people that we talk about, especially a lot of those people that the Each One Teach One, our brothers from the Each One Teach One platform, a lot of the information I got from over there, a lot of those people was ministers. They was Christians. And they were taught the values of Christians. They were taught values of, Eurocentric. Some of them were, you know what I'm saying? Still, it was the teachings was delved in a Eurocentric thought, a Eurocentric standards, right? And we're still going by the Eurocentric standards today, whether it's applying to some of their high institutions, or whether it's applying to some of their jobs. We still going by the Eurocentric standards today, right? Early advancements of fields was omitted. Students were not told that ancient Africans of the interior knew sufficient science, concocted poisons for arrows, to mix durable colors and painting, to extract metals from nature and refine them for development in the industrial arts. Very little was said about the chemistry and the method of Egyptian embalming, which was the product of mixed breedings of Northern Africa's now known as the modern world as colored people. So these are some of the things that they omitted, and they still are omitting a lot of the when I'm saying it's contribution. So he's explaining some of the contributions that Africans or our ancestors had that actually gave to the world, or people took and they build upon and expound upon. A lot of these things that they talk about with our ancestors, they describe them as being primitive. But when you look at certain things, when they say, okay, this was at this time when they developed these certain types of technology, right? It was not primitive at this time. This was a new advancement in technology. Like he just mentioned the arrow, right? He mentioned the arrow. The arrow is a projectile missile, right? Or a projectile weapon, right? And people take that as an architect and they begin to build on it and make it better as time goes on. So I'm just saying that a lot of things that we contribute to, they took and they build on and sophisticated later on time when we was able to, you know what I'm saying, when other scientific developments, you know what I'm saying, came about, where we was able to expand, you know what I'm saying, on certain things of build or expound more on certain things. Very little was said about the chemistry and the, okay, let's go on to the next page. It's page 12. And the study of language in school pupils were made to scoff the Negro dialect of some particular possessions of Negroes, which they should despise, rather to direct the study of programs in the language broken down by African tongue. In short, understanding their own linguistic history, which certain importance of the studies of French phonetics, historical Spanish grammar, to the African language, and such attention was the accept in the case of perpetuals of traders, missionaries, and public founders of exploiting the natives. The number of persons thus trained, of course, constituted a small fraction, hardly deserving attention. From the literary of Africans was excluded altogether. He was not supposed to have and express any thoughts of knowing. The philosophical and the African philosophical and the African proverbs and the rich folklores that contents was ignored to give preference to the development and the distinction shores of the Mediterranean. Most missionaries teach of the freedmen, like most men of the time, had never read the interesting books of traveling in Africa and never heard of Tahaka el Sudan. In the teachings of the fine arts, these instructions usually started with Greece by showing how the arts was influenced from without and omitted the African influence of science, now regarding significance and the dominance of early Hellas. And this is what I was talking about earlier, how they omitted the contributions from our ancestors. And when we go to school, a lot of times they are teaching our kids about the Greeks. They're teaching our kids about the Romans, right? These people were intelligent people, so they teach you about Pythagoras. They teach you about Euclid. They teach you about Thales, and so forth, Einstein, and so forth. They teaching you about these great minds, these Greeks and these Romans who were great thinkers, who provided certain theories, who provided certain mathematical equations, mathematical formulas, and etc. Right? So they always speak about those people in regards and omit the contributions to other contributions our ancestors made, to the world. These things are still going on today. This is something that Carter G. Woodson was talking about in the 20th century, because I said this book, I think the first publication of this book of the Miseducation of the Negro, I think was 1990. Somebody Google that for me and make sure, but I think it was 1990. But like I said, the book has been revised a lot of times, so you'll see a lot of dates. But I think the original publication of this book was 1990, which will be the 20th century, right? And the teachings of these instructions use the bias did not stop at that point for the invadings of the teachings of the professors. Negro law students were told that they belong to most criminal elements in the country, and an effort was made to justify the procedures and a seat to injustice where laws was interpreted as being things for the white man and a different things for the Negro. And this is another reason why a lot of our kids, think the way that they think. I ain't gonna, what I'm saying? It's no need of me, getting a good education, because I ain't gonna be SHIT anyway. They saying I come from criminals. My background is criminals. My background are people who were enslaved. He says 1933. Appreciate that. I knew it was somewhere around. What did I say? 1930. Okay, I was off. What did I don't know what I said. I don't know if I said 1930, 1920, but appreciate that. I knew it was somewhere around in there, but it was the 20th century when the book was originally published. But so you see through this system how we begin, and not only as we looking at this and we're reading what Carter G. Woodson is talking about, the public school system is giving our kids low self-esteem, like really giving our kids low self-esteem. They're learning about the great contributions of people who didn't look like them, and they are learning that the people that look like them were criminals, were primitive, and if it wasn't for slavery, or it wasn't for the European did us a favor by enslaving us or coming to save us from a primitive way of life. And so now they're setting it up first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade. So it's a continuation of each initiation, right? And I'm saying initiation because it's an initiation of information. It's you're graduating from one level of information to the next level of information. So you go from kindergarten with a certain amount of information, then you go to the first grade, then you meet suitable proficiencies in the first grade, and they pass you. Once you meet the criteria of the first grade student, now you're being passed on to the next degree, or passed on to the next grade, or initiated into the next grade, another level of information. And this cycle continues to go on and on and on. And now they are programming our kids that people look like them did not contribute nothing to the world. And these other individuals, particularly the ones that are teaching them, because you have most of our kids within the school system, you are being taught by people that does not look like them. We have black teachers in our school system, you know what I'm saying? But predominantly of most of the schools, our kids are being taught by people that does not look like them, that does not understand them, does not understand their culture, does not understand their walk of life, does not understand the verbiage of the language that actually comes out of their mouth, or understand their worldly view, right? So Carter G. Woodson is, taking us through this. And this is why I'm saying our kids begins to develop low self-esteem, because now they're constantly being taught from the first, second, third, fourth, all the way up until they graduate, about people that look like them, were primitive, was savages, was criminals, was heathens, was paganists, you know what I'm saying, infidels, whatever the case was. These terminologies are being thrown on. So then it's conditioned us to where now we start to say, man, right around the corner, we got a black guy that actually fixed cars. And then about right around the corner, then about 10 miles down the road, we got a white car mechanic shop. Man, I'm gonna take my car over here to the white folks, because we've been conditioned that our people didn't do nothing. We've been conditioned that we are savages. We've been conditioned that we are not highly intelligent or highly sophisticated to do things that the European has did. So we're been conditioning. Now I'm gonna go over here to these white folks over here. I hear that all the time where I'm at. I'm gonna go over here with these white folks at. So we'll patronize the white folks or the Europeans, or that now not only just the Europeans, we'll go to the stores, and which a lot of us don't have any control over it, because now the Arabs are in our own community. So the Arabs in our community, just about on every block, owns a store. You know what I'm saying? Now we go uptown, we trying to go, our women want to get their nails and their hair, especially their nails and their feet done, and you know what I'm saying, and polish. Now, you know what I'm saying, the Koreans, you know what I'm saying. So now we have to go to the Koreans. So now we got black, people that, and I'm just speaking from what I'm seeing here. It may not be happening in your town, but I know here we have more women to go to the Koreans than they will go to the black technicians that we have. Man, I ain't going over there to that grandma. I'm going right on out here to these folks. So, we're being conditioned to basically hate ourselves, or we're being conditioned to think that we are not intelligent enough to do some of the things that the other races are able to do. I always skip the Arab hood store and go to the African stores. I feel you, brother. I'm telling you, they everywhere too, man. They're everywhere. Let's get into it. The medical school Negroes were likewise convinced that the inferiority of being reminded that their roles as germ carriers, the prevalent syphilis and tuberculosis among Negroes was especially emphasized, without showing these melodies are more deadly among the Negroes for the reason that they are Caucasian diseases. And since these plagues are new to the Negro, these sufferings have not had time to develop against the immunity which times has permitted in the Caucasians. Other diseases to which Negroes easily fall prey were mentioned to point out the race of the undesirable elements when the conditions was due to the Negro economics and social status. Little emphasis was placed upon the immunity of the Negro from diseases like yellow fever, immunism, which are so disastrous to whites, yet the whites never considered inferior because this is different resistance to these plagues. I'm gonna read one more page and then we're gonna go into this article. In history, of course, the Negro had placed in this curriculum. He was pictured as a human being, as in lower order, unable to subject passions to reasons, and therefore useful only when made to hew of wood and the drawer of water of others. Now, peep this now. Peep this now. I've been saying that the system was created to empower another group of people, right? And to make another group of people subservient to the people that they're trying to empower, right? So he says it was a picture as a human being as lower order, unable to subject passions to reason, and therefore useful only when made to hew of wood and the drawer of water for others. And I'm gonna say it's nothing wrong with being a working man, right? But at some point, we have to go beyond saying that it's okay to work just a 9 to 5. We always say we want our kids to go to school, and we tell them this, son or daughter, I want you to go to school, I want you to get a good education, and I want you to get a good job. We never say go to school, get an education, and become an entrepreneur. You know what I'm saying? Create something of your own, right? Create your own freedom, right? Create opportunities for your own people. Then show them how you created your opportunities, where we able to thrive as a community, where people are, we have, you know, where we're able to pass down generational wealth. But we have been, you know, conditioned to just go to school, get a good education, and get a good job. You know what I'm saying? No thoughts was given to the history of Africans except far as it had been in the field of exploration for the Caucasian. You might study the history as it was offered to our systems from the elementary school throughout the university, and would never hear Africans mentioned except except in the negative, right? And we're still today mentioned in a negative. This is why you have us, when we plan to take trips, we rather go to, man, we rather go to Paris. Man, I want to go to Dubai. I just want to go to London. I want to go to the Caribbeans. You know, I want to go to Jamaica, even though, a lot of our ancestors was dropped off in some of those places, but we never want to go to Africa. That is nowhere on the itinerary for us to visit the homeland, the land where humanity started at, right? We never want to go there because we're being taught in school, not even in school, but even in some of our religious institutions, we're being taught that Africans are beneath us, or Africans didn't contribute nothing to society, or Africans were savages, or Africans enslaved another group of people called the Hebrews, which we still looking for the historical data behind that, outside of the biblical narrative, outside of the Torah narrative, outside of the Quranic narrative. You know what I'm saying? So these are some of the things, man, that's continues, being embedded in us, you know what I'm saying, being indoctrinated in us through the school system. No thoughts was given to history as Africans accepted as so far in the field of exploration for the Caucasian. You might study the history and the offer of the systems from the elementary school throughout the university, and you would never hear Africans mentioned except in the negative. You would never thereby learn that Africans first domesticated the sheep, the goats, and cow, developed the ideal and trial by jury, producing the first string instruments, and gave the world its greatest boon in the discovery of iron. You will never know that the prior to the Mohammedan invasions about 1000 AD, these natives in the heart of the Africans had developed powerful kingdoms which were later organized as the Sunghay Empire on the order, and that the Romans and the boastings of the similar grandeurs. Unlike other people, then the Negro, according to the point of view, was the exceptions to the nature plans of things, and he had no such mission as that of an outstanding contribution to the culture. The status of a Negro then was justified, fixed as that of the inferior. And we do believe that our ancestors were inferior. Just with the conversations that I have with people and some of the things, the ugliest things that are said. And a lot of things, like I'm saying, we are regurgitating things that has been taught through us through television, that has been taught through us through these religious institutions that we was forced into, and the public school system are the things that has been taught over and over and over and over through the initiation of the first grade, initiation of the second grade, initiation of the third grade, initiation of the fourth, all the way to initiation up to the 12th grade. Then we go to a higher institution, and then we give them another 4 years where they condition us to certain, aspects of slanted or biased information. Where was I? As observed outside the situation, naturally inquired Negroes, many whom served as a racial teachers, had to change this program. These teachers, however, are powerless. Negroes have no control over the education and have little voice in their other affairs pertaining thereto. In a few cases, Negroes have been chosen as members of the public board of education, and some have been appointed members of private boards, but these Negroes are always such a small minority that they do not figure in the final works out of the educational program. The education of the Negro then is the most important thing in the uplift of the Negro. It is almost entirely in the hands of those who have enslaved them and now segregated them. Correct. Within miseducation Negro and control themselves, however, it is undoubtful that the system would be very much different from what it is, or that it would rapidly undergo change. The Negro thus placed in charge would be produced with the same system and would show no more conceptions of the task of hand than to do the whites who had educated them and shaped their minds as they would have them to function. And this is true. You have schools, going back to my school my son went to. My son had a black female principal and a black female assistant principal, right? And the school had black teachers as well as white teachers, but it was a predominantly black and brown school. You had whites that went there, but what's the name went there? So these teachers would only regurgitate and educate our children on the information that they were taught, right? And even if those who wanted was a part of the school boards or private school boards, they was a minority. Whether they wanted to try to change this Eurocentric standard, or even try to change and switch up some of the information that is being assimilated to the kids, they could not do that because, again, most of these boards or any type of board or even organization now these days, or business boards, it has to be passed through a vote, right? And we know mostly through those are 2/3 votes, majority rule. So if you're a minority and you're trying to push change, in your school districts, if there's a limit of people on these private school boards it's just going to be the continuous cycle of their standards of how they want to push, the narrative, how they want to push education on our children, right? I don't even know where I left. Okay. Negroes, educators of today, may have more sympathy and interest in the race than the whites now exploiting Negroes' institutions as educators. By the Caucasians of the prejudice or Negroes of enslaved minds, one generation of Negro teachers after another have served for no higher purpose than to do what they are told to do. In other words, a Negro teacher instructed Negro children is, in many respects, a white teacher, thus engaging for the program in each case about the same, which is correct. I just wanted to read a couple of pages real quick from there and kind of stop and kind of briefly talk about some of the things in there. But I want to get to this this article. I found this is an article from Times. Like I said, it's in the description. If somebody want to keep up, you can go down in the description of the show and you can click and go into this article, because it says, for Black parents resisting whitewash history, homeschooling is increasingly popular option, right? And we know homeschooling, which we'll talk about that too. Homeschooling really came, homeschooling became popular, or I began to see homeschooling become popular in real time here in my state during the pandemic. You know what I'm saying? But it didn't last for a long period of time. And we'll talk about why it didn't last a long period of time. You know what I'm saying? Because, we don't talk about some of the positions the parents was in, far as trying to, especially especially the single parent women, single parent homes, you know what I'm saying? And mostly in our community, we know we do have the father and mother in the home, but majority in our community, we have the woman that is raising the kids full time, and the father's part time. What I mean part time, he's not in the home. And hold on, this is my son. He done got off here. But we'll talk about that, man. But I this is an interesting article, man. Like I said, it touched on a variety of things. You know what I'm saying? It kind of touches on some of the stuff that Carter G. Woodson was actually talking about. You know what I'm saying? Far as them conditioning our minds, we don't have enough people on the school board. I mean, just tons of things, them omitting the contributions our ancestors have, the reason why the empowerment of another group, making another group subservient. We are only worth work, you know, working for those other individuals. But where I want to start it in this article, man. We'll start right here. For Sarah Rogan, it was a social study lessons to describe enslaved people receiving on the job training. This is hold on, listen to this. For Sarah Rogan, it was a social study lesson that describes enslaved people receiving on the job training. So when we was enslaved, our ancestors were enslaved. When our ancestors were kidnapped on the shores of West Africa and Central Africa, they was kidnapped so they can get some job training. So, she's saying that, we was, and we're going to talk about the critical race theory too. We're going to talk about the critical race theory, and we're going to talk about not only our homeschooling now, like we're saying it's important for people, for African Americans to have their African American children or their Black children in, to be homeschooled or in other schools, other African American schools, which we'll talk about some of the people who I admire right now in real time who are trying to affect change with their schools. And a few of these people y'all may already, y'all may know, but they saying that, being enslaved was job training, man. Our these people are ridiculous. Our ancestors was getting job training. We was getting job training. 400 years of internship. Yeah, man, that's crazy, man. For where, man, we was interns for 400 some years. That, but that we see that, and real quick, pure Black. Shout out to you, peace, brother. And that's what, and but you know, and okay, but we also got to stop bypassing over the Arab slave trade or the Saharan slave trade. This is another reason why I'm putting out a book, but it's not to go too deep into the slave trade, but it's to go into the how sex was actually a tool that was utilized within in slavery. It was a different practice within slavery that was profitable, you know what I'm saying, for the enslaver, but and some of the things that the women, the slaveholder women did that we don't talk about. But you know, I wanted to talk about the Saharan slave trade and the slave trade. But we can't skip over the Arabs. It wasn't, even though the European took it to another level, but the Arabs did it too. Let me see. As far as homeschooling goes, I don't think parents realize that they can teach on their own hours and not on regular public schools. Yeah, I they you know they I do too. I do too, or they don't have, you know, and we'll talk about it real quick and I'll go further. You know, like I'm saying, a lot of the parents are single parents, right? So they're working all the time to provide for their children, you know, to keep a roof over their head, to keep food in the refrigerator, to keep clothes on their backs, to keep them warm when it's cold, to keep them cold when it's hot, you know. So a lot of times in our community, it's hard to homeschool your children if majority of the time you gone for 10 or 12 hours. And once you get home, you're not trying to pick up a book or trying to get your kids to your chalkboard if you got a chalkboard, or y'all pull out y'all laptops and this is what we're going to do, you know, blase, 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 or got time to check your children work, go over work, you know, break stuff down, give them a better understanding, you know what I'm saying, because you've been working long periods of times. And I think too, that's is another reason why I try to push, you know, that we got to get out of the mind of trying to go telling our kids, or even the mindset of go to school, get a good education and get a good job. See, we need to have the financial freedoms. And I'm talking to myself too. I had the financial freedom for a long time. And then now I don't have the financial freedom. I'm working a 9 to 5, and then I'm trying and I'm working actually working 24 hours at times because I have 2 other businesses that I'm trying to get further, you know, established, where I'm able to come off the 9 to 5, where I'm able to have the access of freedom to do certain things. And maybe I could pull my stepdaughter out of school. Maybe I could pull my son out of school, which I have been trying for years, especially with my son. And I had an opportunity at one time to do, but me and his mother was going back and forth with that, you know, in a tug of war, you know what I'm saying? And she really didn't understand or get the bigger picture behind what I was trying to do for my son. But let's get back into it. So in fact, the sons was only black students in his grade. For Adrian Thomas, it was realized just how little she had learned about black history while attending both public and private school. I did not want and this article was published, and she's talking about her child and how her child hadn't learned much about her history at all. And this was published this year in 2022. Like I'm saying, these things are still going on. Our story, our contributions to the world has as is still being emitted in these textbooks, in these school systems curriculums. I did not want my children to have the same experience as Thomas, who was with Rohan and Lomar, is now homeschooling her children, becoming part of a movement that once was seen as the dominant of whites, conservative families. I want them to have a deeper understanding of history and the flaws within our history. And the thumbnail that I have is of this family from this article. And they touch on a broad things, and they explaining why they took their kids out. And the woman and mother, they're married, both parents are in the household. One, you know, both dedicated to homeschooling, withdrawing their kids out of the public school and teaching them the correct information because they got tired of the biased information, the lies that has been disseminated, the omitting of their ancestors' history out of the school books, the narrative push that blacks are savages, blacks are not intelligent, or and if they do say anything in regards of that's not negative about blacks, then they will talk about some of the inventors, the same inventors over and over again in February, and then after February it's obsolete. It's back to this normal schedule. Is what's the name, and that is painting a narrative that Africans did not contribute anything to the world, speaking negative of Africans or people that look like us in a negative connotation. Homeschooling increased nations after the pandemic, disrupting the personal learning among households and the schooling ages of children. Percentages report homeschooling them rose from 5.4% in April of 2020 to 11.1% in October 2022. The last week in which those figures are available, according to the U.S. Central Bureau Household Plus survey, the increase was the significance among the Black families, about 3.3 of whom were homeschooling in spring of 2020. By the fall of 2020, 16.1 were homeschooling, according to the surveys. And as population has grew, so have the curriculum resources and support groups. While COVID-19 was the catalyst, many Black parents concerned about racism in the schools and frustrated by the prevalence of whitewash history lessons have also turned to homeschooling as a way to take control of their children's education and give them an unvarnished version of U.S. history, even as such efforts come under the attack of the school districts around the country. Homeschooling has become such a refuge for many families, Black families in particular, that they don't have to go to under-resourced schools that they were assigned, says Cheryl Field Smith and the association's professions at the University of Georgia, Maryland, France, Early College and Education, who has researched homeschoolings among Black families. They have an option where someone can create for them and really positive nurture learning environment. The challenges faces by the Black children in America public schools as well as documented. Black students are disciplined as a higher rate than the white peers. Districts that serve mostly Blacks and Latino students receive far less funding than those of mostly white students. I'm gonna stop right there. That's true. Going back to when my son was going to Wesley, I mentioned that my son had a Black female principal, a Black female assistant principal. You had white teachers, Black teachers that went to the school that were there. Majority of the population of that school was Black kids, and you had Mexican kids, and you had a few whites, but majority was Blacks. And a lot of times when you look at a lot of these school districts where you have majority of the people who are Black or African descent, right? The schools are not heavily funded. Now, when going back to my son's school, we would pull up. I dropped my son off at school every day when he went to Wesley, and we would pull up. And this school was not funded well, and even with the food, not only just the books but the food, we would bring food to my son's school for lunch at times, because some of the stuff that the people was donating there, or even when we would pull up and drop my son off. When I would drop my son off where you're supposed to drop the kids off to go into school, there would be these coolers outside the front of the school building. And this was money that, or what they could afford to have somebody were gracious enough to cook breakfast or facilitate some type of food for the kids to have for breakfast. So they would drop these damn coolers off in front of the school where the kids get dropped off to go into the building if you bringing your kids to school every day. Or I would pull up, people would be pulling up, I'll be pulling up behind them, they getting out, popping the truck, rolling the coolers up, boom, setting them out front so someone can come give them, take them to the cafeteria. And what's the name? But that school was underfunded where and at this time before, it's popular now that when you your kids go to school, they tell you you got to have 2 packs of color pencils. You got to have a pack of pencils. You got to have 5 packs of notebook paper. You got to have 2 boxes of handkerchiefs. You got to have this. This is before it got popular. This was years ago. They were so underfunded that they was asking the parents to bring in extra supplies because the school didn't have those supplies at that time. And even damn, hold on. Why is my battery? Okay, hold on, y'all. Let me see. God, hold on 1 second. Let me plug this other charger up to my hold on, y'all. Give me 1 second. Let me plug this. All right, I'm back, man. My one of my laptops about to die. But yeah, so but anyway, man, a lot of these schools that are put students that are predominantly black or predominantly black and brown, they are very underfunded. So, they would need the assistance of some of the parents to do certain things. So I seen that firsthand with my son's school, old outdated books, you know what I'm saying, textbooks, and etc. So the challenge of black children in American public schools is well documented. Black students in disciplines of higher race than their white peers. Districts of Syria, mostly blacks and Latino students receive far less funding than those of mostly white students. A black student are unlikely to be taught by black educators, as only 7% of the public school teachers are black, which is true. On top of that, many schools districts are now facing calls to remove books by black authors from school libraries and restricts how teachers discuss race in a classroom. We know that this is going on right now. It is onslaught battle. They're trying to remove certain things now out of the curriculum because they don't want to be painted in a negative way, or they don't want our children to learn about the atrocities or the crimes that was committed against their ancestors, right? If you send your children to school and those ideals are there, you have to rescue them in a way, says Phil Smith. Out of frustration, they realize, what, I can do better than this job. Thomas was whose children range from the age of 4 to 12, recall visiting her daughter's first grade private school classroom a few years ago for Thanksgiving. Activities of painting a rosy picture of relationships between the pilgrims and the natives. I thought, oh, I'm doing my child a disservice. She says the obvious wrong. I can remember when, man, we'll say, just send me some. You just send me something. I say you just send me something, boss. I'll look at it in just a second. I can remember, I can remember telling my son about Thanksgiving. And I gave my son, which it wasn't going to be his decision. It was going to be his mom's decision at the end of the day. My son's 14, but this was years ago, still young, still a young man. I would tell him about the Pilgrims, or the Puritans. You know what I'm saying? I explained the Puritans. You know, if y'all get a chance, look up the Puritans. Puritans are the Pilgrims, but the Puritans were radical Protestants. But that's a whole nother story. But we talked about the Pilgrims, and we talked to him about the Native Americans. And I told him the things of what the Native Americans did or tried to do or did do for those people who they're calling the Pilgrims. And in turn, what those Pilgrims actually did to those Native Americans. And I explained to him, son, why you don't see me at Thanksgiving dinners anymore. And I did this for some years. I was super, I say I was super radical, I was super woke. Now, you know, to be honest, I do engage in the dinner part, and a lot of times now my family doesn't even consider it far as being Thanksgiving, or we selling Thanksgiving and talking about the or doing the traditional Thanksgiving with turkey and all that. We just opportunity where people are off work because they are allowed to be off of work. And now it's an opportunity for us all to get together and fellowship, kick it, eat good, tell old stories, and enjoy just enjoy the family company, because it's an opportunity. It's a window now for us to get together versus us having a hard time trying to plan and get together when people work different shifts and work different hours, right? So that's how we look at it now, and that's how we do it. We do it now. But in school they're still teaching that peachy thing of, the natives and the pilgrims was friendly with each other. They was friends, and they broke bread and ate, and everything was all hunky-dory, and you know, and we get caught up in, their holidays and celebrate these holidays, and we're selling the genocide and not understanding that we're celebrating the genocide of another group of people, even though those other group of people also did some things that we gloss over too when we talk about those 5 civilized tribes, and how those 5 civilized tribes adopted the way of life of the European, how those Europeans gave those natives, 5 civilized tribes, slaves as well, how those Native Americans began to, get their own African slaves as well. And some of them was mad, and particularly the Creek, when the Emancipation Proclamation passed, where they didn't want to let they African slaves go. That's a whole nother story too. But but celebrating the genocides of another people. Since she started teaching her kids in their Richardson, Texas, home of 2020, Thomas has used the U.S. history curriculum from woke homeschooling, a platform created by Delilah Prince McCall, who struggled to find history curriculum she liked. When she first began homeschooling nearly 10 years ago, she found the most had a conservative bent, including religious teachings, and learned heavily on the perspective of white people within the USA. I want to shout out Delana, because this is one of the, I ain't gonna say support groups, because hopefully we'll be able to talk about the support groups and try to move pretty fast. But she has right here, let me go here. This is the woke homeschooling. I don't know if y'all can, I hope it flipped right on to the next. I'm trying to see. Yes. And the woman and her husband, who were kind of talking about who started homeschooling her kids because of the whitewash curriculums that her kids were being taught, and information of their people being omitted out. They began to take on the responsibility of educating their own kids, right? And this woman too, Delilah, did the same thing, and she created the woke homeschooling. You can now, she's sending me stuff now to register, and I wanted to pull something, but I don't have time to pull up something that was actually sent to me from her. And now, you can actually enroll. She have online classes. This is something that she started, and she has textbooks for the kids also. But so I went on the website, what I'm saying, looking on the website, and I wanted to look at some of her curriculums, and I wanted to look at the books. But right now she has, and even if you don't enroll into her own online classes, because she have online classes as well, where she homeschool and she teaches a curriculum. But here's a proverb. He says, "Until the story of the," and I don't. Oh man, and this is actually the same African proverb I used when I was doing my author's perspective show, where I was bringing on different authors and we will break down their process on how they came up with the title of the books, what was the steps and procedures they took to write the book, how long they wrote the book, how important it is for people that look just like you to tell our own story. This was one of the proverbs that I would use with opening up the show. And it says, "Until the story of the hunt is told by the lion, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." And this is why we always glorify those who put us in certain situations, or put our ancestors in certain situations, or create certain situations for us. So we always glorify them or look at them in a better manner than we look at our own selves or our own neighbors. But she has a book called Old Freedom, the Conscious U.S. History Curriculum. She also has Old Freedom, the high school edition, the Conscious of U.S. Curriculum. She has the Old Freedom, the high school edition, a Conscious U.S. History Curriculum. I think this one here is the beginning of the Reconstruction of 1877. This is part 2 of 1870 to present. And this is just a second edition right here. So she has some curriculum. If you want to click and download a sample, you can be able. I think I downloaded a sample as well, and I think it kind of talk more about why she did what she did 10 years ago in creating, and it's in the same form of what we kind of talking about with this stuff that's going on with the public school system. Excuse me, right now. Let me go here. I got tired of reading about white people. Got tired of reading about white people experiences. Saying Principal McCall, who is a Black and was also homeschooled her children 12 years old and twisted into 14-year-old. You get tried to the same perspective that the whole time. She crafted her own curriculum, marketing up her children textbooks, researching alternate reading, removing lessons involving the Confederate anthem Dixie, and adding the lessons about life, every voice, and sing along. She made a curriculum public in 2019, offering it to the digital download for other parents, hoping to give them the tools to guide the children through tough conversations into harsh reality. She saw more than 2,000 curriculums downloaded in August of 2020 compared to 300 in August of 2009, attributed to the spikes to the rise of homeschooling during the pandemic and to increasing focus on the systematic racism following the death of George Floyd. Her U.S. history curriculum for the 3rd or 7th graders costs $50, and her high school curriculum comes to a 2-part, $60 each. I just sold both of them, all promising to make the history of Native Americans, African Americans, and immigrants more than an afterthought. More than 700 families have enrolled to woke homeschooling online courses since 2020, she says. I like to say, let's tell the truth and see what happened, because we haven't been telling the truth. She says we haven't as a nation as a whole grappled with history in the truthful way. Some parents have determined that we're going to do this differently. And I applaud them for doing it differently, because like I said, our teachers have been forced to tell or teach lies. And we're continuing teaching lie after lie from one grade to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And we want to be able to empower our own kids. We want to be able to share the contributions that our ancestors contribute to the world. The history of homeschooling, the fact the principal couldn't find many curriculum options that were written from conservative Christian perspective, her lesson plans have generated much interest, reflecting the grander demographic of homeschooling. An early wave of homeschooling in the 1970s was derived by the left-learned parents more aligned with the counterculture of 1960s. Educator John Hope coined the term unschooling. Hope advocated for child direct learning and less emphasis testing, encouraging the leave of public school system. But during the 1980s and the 90s, homeschooling became a more conservative movement, overlapping the conservative ideals of limited government, parental rights, and freedom. I'm gonna skip some of this, man. For time's sake, I want to kind of get into. I think they talked about. I want to get into the ADHD thing, man. You know, she mentioned the ADHD thing on here, and I kind of wanted to talk about it. Let me see if I can find that real quick. See how excited that young man is. That young man is excited for learning. He's learning. He's excited. He's excited, but also, you know, he's regular, 6-year-old kid, man, full of energy. You know, he would be prone, those that didn't look like him, his teachers would prone him to have ADHD. I'm trying to find it, but if I can't, I just want to kind of talk about it real quick. But I want to find it because she mentioned ADHD in this article. And I don't know where it's at. We can't be removed, but I'll talk about it real quick, man, with the ADHD. And maybe while I talk about it, I'll be able to find out where it was at, because she talked about ADHD. And a lot of our kids get diagnosed with ADHD. And I'm telling you, do not listen. If you get invited to come to the school to talk about your kid, and they're telling you about some of the behavior of your child, or they send a letter home and ask, could they bring someone into the home to talk about your child, tell them no thank you, because they're trying to say by the behavior of this young African child, a young Black child, that he has something may be wrong with him, because he's over hyper. He's too hyper. He's or she is disrupting the class. We know our kids are just being kids. They want to move, they fidgeted, they want to they want to get up, they want to move, they want to talk, they want to say things. So they would diagnose a lot of these kids having ADHD, or bringing somebody in the home to talk, and then saying, okay, we want to go and we're going to test him. We're going to put him on these certain types of drugs. And when you look at some of the drugs that they put him on, some of these drugs is lethal. It's deadlier than crack cocaine, some of the ingredients within some of these drugs, right? And when you're looking at the school system, and you're looking at some of the undeveloped school systems at that, or you looking at a school system where majority of the educators are white, they don't understand our children. So a lot of times this is coming from, these European teachers or educators who are supposedly concerned about our kids, so they'll diagnose you with ADHD or diagnose your kids. And then not only is with that, they begin to put your children into special ed. How many of y'all know within the school system that they get money? Your children are valuable to the school system, are valuable to the district. Each student that is housed within a school get a certain amount of money. And like I'm saying, each district or each state, the children, it varies. Like Mississippi at one time might have been $700 or $750 per student that's enrolled into that school, right? And if you get that student into special ed or in this program doubles the amount of money that if this school was getting $750 per student, now that you done gave them permission to put your child on medicine, enroll them in this program, in this special ed program, and now the $750 has went up. What, that's that's $1,500. That's $1,500 per student, right? And now they're being misdiagnosed. Your children are being misdiagnosed for having ADHD and being put on these medicine. And you can do the research, and there have been children who have died from taking this medicine or these prescriptions. And when you look at the ingredients inside of these medicines, like I said, most of these ingredients are deadlier than some of the ingredients within crack. So now your children, who has nothing wrong with them, who are just being children, who's saying that these children are too fidgety, these children are too energetic, these children are talking too much, these children are moving entirely too much and disrupting the class. Something is wrong with. So now they're being conditioned. Now we giving them the okay to give them the medicine, to put them in these special ed programs. And now they start to be in these programs, majority of them in these programs until they graduate school. So now they're being conditioned that something is wrong with them when at the end, nothing is, in our actuality, nothing was never wrong with them in the beginning. But us listening to someone coming in that's not looking like us and projecting and telling us something wrong with our child, and our child need to be put on certain type of medicine and then need to be put in these programs because they're disrupting those classes. And then within that agenda, they are now doubling, the school system is now doubling the money from $750, it varies from $750 to $1,500. And a lot of those children that are in those programs that get put on those medicine, what do you think they look like? They look just like me and you. And those people, and I should have had some stuff, because I did, like I said, this was years ago when I started digging into a lot of this stuff, finding out stuff when it was pertaining to my son, because a lot of this stuff hit home for me, because I had a woman, or I actually had a teacher to come into my home and wanted to put my son, because my son was very fidgety. My son was when as a young boy, my son was very hyper. Like I'm telling you, he was hyper. He was hyper. And if you go back and look at some of my old videos, you can see my son running around in the videos, or telling my son, be quiet, slow down. He's running back and forth. That's just all day long. He's just hyper running. He's full of energy. He's animated, and he's like to talk. So these people were saying something was wrong with my son because he was disrupting the class. He was always getting up, and he was always moving, and he was always talking in class. He was disrupting the class. So they brung somebody into my house. But at the same time, look, the school was underfunded. And I'm not saying that was their objective or their agenda was to get black people or black children to, or black parents or African descent parents, to give them permission to put them in a program, to put them on medicine in order for them to get money. But I have seen in the past that has been a strategy for some other school district, not particularly in my state, but this has been years ago of me doing the research, right? So now you got these children in these programs and been in these special ed programs for years and thinking something wrong with them when nothing is wrong with them, and they're not getting the proper education, in parentheses, the proper education as they should get. And a lot of the times when I looked at it, and I hadn't looked at it, I'm gonna tell you, this might have been 7, 8 years ago. But when I looked at the stats then, I may try to pull them up now. A lot of those people that was in the program, what you think happened to some of those children that was in those programs that got mixed diagnosed in those public schools by European educators because they didn't, because the children, they say that the child was disrupting the class. What do y'all think happened to some of those children that was in those got in those programs? What y'all think happened? I'm talking to the chat. And while I'm waiting on that, I'm gonna see if I can still stroll and find. And I know I don't went past it because she talks about it as well. She briefly talks about it in this article. Man, this is a good article. It talks on a lot. I wanted to read all of what was going on and some of the various topics that they talked about, and it sparked my interest because, like, I've been talking about this stuff for years about the food system, the school system, and like some of the concerns where this father and mother began to educate their kids. And then me finding where they talked about Delana and her curriculum and how, the same gripes that they was having about the schools and some of the same stuff that was going on with their children, it kind of hit home with me. So, I'm asking y'all, what do y'all think about what y'all think happened to those kids that was in those programs though, that got misdiagnosed and then did some years in special ed programs? What y'all think happened to those kids? Did they go on to be productive citizens in society? Did they go on to be successful Black men and women? What y'all think happened? I seen it. Hold on, let me see. Let me see if I can do it right here. All right. Ross Madison. I just what? I don't what I just hey let me hey brother, what you trying to say? Is this a troll in here, man? And hold on. Hey Sutek, if you still in here, man, delete that comment for me, man. Ross Madison. I don't know if they were trying to say something. And I think this that troll dude. I really think that's that troll dude that was in here when we was all building. Me, Sean, and Ben was in here. Sutek, if you still in here, man, block him where I won't have to stop sharing my show to let me see. I may be able to do it right here. Let me see. Remove. Let's see. Put using timeout. Yeah, that's what we would do. Yeah, put him in timeout. I don't know if he was trying to say that, but if you was, brother, you need to go somewhere else with that foolishness, man. Well, we've been getting more crazy people in there as I just about to delete that. I appreciate it, but I already blocked him. I went on his other computer. I was trying not the Woodson name, but we've been getting some crazy people in there. Like, I'm serious. We've been getting some crazy people in here. But Vasa said, I seen it firsthand. Majority end up dropped out with strong addiction tendencies. Right. A lot of those people either don't finish and drop out of school. A lot of them get sprung out on drugs. A lot of them become criminals. They have no type of skill set or anything. So some of them get wrapped up, in the criminal life. This is when we start to talk about the prison pipeline. The school is the prison pipeline, is the prison pipeline. So we start to talk about, so if you look at the prison pipeline or our streams behind a lit bit. Okay. And you do your due diligence or research on the prison pipeline, and you can see some of these incidents where what I'm talking about, people being misdiagnosed and children being put in programs in school, utilizing these programs to get more funding for the school. Yes, it happens. Yes, it happens. And I'm telling you, don't listen to me. Do your own due diligence of research on some of this stuff. I don't know if some of the stuff is still occurring, like I said, but I dug into this 8 years ago, especially with a lot of this stuff, man, because it hit home for me, because it was a lot of stuff that this article was talking about that was going on with their kids, or stuff that they were just observing within the schools their children was going into, you know what I'm saying? And it was another reason why I wanted to homeschool my son. And I could have at that time because I had the financial freedom for years, but it was a tug of war between me and my wife, man, well, me and my mother's, me and my son's mother, because she didn't understand how important it was to educate your own child. You know what I'm saying? We want to empower, our own child. We want to be able to uplift our own child. We want to be able to share right and sound information with our own child. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of us don't understand that the public school system is set up for us to fail. It is set up for us to fail. When you look at those, where it comes from out of Europe, when you look at that, it's a Eurocentric model. The school curriculum is a model from a Eurocentric perspective. And its goal is to empower one group of people and make another group subservient to the other group of people. Carter G. Woodson, we read from Carter G. Woodson. He just talked about that song. He just talked about that song, and observing and seeing that and looking and at the curriculum. When you look at the curriculum, you can see that it's not far-fetched, or what I'm saying, or what Carter G. Woodson, or what other people's, or even what this family is saying who wrote this article, or Delana who created the woke homeschooling, what she's saying. So it's crazy. I wanted to read all of this, but let's go into I'm not gonna read all of it. Let's go into here real quick, online support groups. But here's like an Afrocentric homeschooling for Black families. And it's like a support group. It's like for people, if you're thinking about trying to homeschool your children and you don't know exactly where to start at, like reach out to Delana Home Woke Schooling. She'll definitely email you back. Or here at Afrocentric School, you have support groups who support families in homeschooling, or even have curriculums that the family can actually get or be involved into their these program online schooling, where they're actually homeschooling and the curriculums. But even as I say that, but let's read this. Homeschooling is is on the rise within African American communities through multiple reasons. Though there may be multiple reasons, many families cite bullying and the increased amount of racism as their top catalyst for homeschooling. Some parents also feel the lack of representation in the current curriculums and want to teach their children traditional Afrocentric values. Homeschooling is a perfect way to do that. Whatever the reason to homeschool, all homeschoolers find freedom in the opportunity to homeschool. And a lot of reasons we begin to take our children out of school to homeschool for whatever reasons, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of those reasons are good reasons. Now you have Europeans who are taking their children out, especially when they came up with the critical race theory. There's been a whole thing the last year, 2 years about the critical race theory, and people starting to look at the critical race theory and just start to look at certain things in general when we're talking about the Europeans. So now the Europeans are starting to take their children out of school because they don't want their children's feelings to be hurt. It's okay for our children's feelings to be hurt, for them to be taught about how, their ancestors was criminals, their ancestors was primitive, their ancestors was savages, their ancestors was unintelligent, their ancestors didn't contribute nothing to societies, their ancestors was running around with bones in their nose, having sex with animals, eating each other. The bad narrative that they paint about our ancestors, and we did nothing of such sense. We didn't understand science. We didn't understand. We wasn't innovative in technology. They didn't take certain things and build from what some of the things that we actually created that was game changing at that particular time, right? So it's okay for our children to be indoctrinated that they ancestors didn't contribute anything and they were slaves, and that's all they were was slaves, and the white man, the white woman, or the Europeans who came on the shores of West Africa and Central Africa, they came in to save them. And reading While Ago, I told you, they said that was job training. They trying to say now that was job, man. We was job training. Slavery was for us to get job training. So it's okay for our children to endure the negativity of and insults and lies about their people. So now the Europeans are upset because we're trying to push more of the information of some of the horrendous crimes that they actually did, through the education, but they can't handle it. Now you're painting my son shouldn't know anything about what happened years ago that didn't have nothing to do with them. You're hurting my son or my daughter feelings. So now you're taking them out of school because you don't want your children feelings to get hurt. But it's for years and years, our children feelings have been hurt and still has developed this low self-esteem when it comes to us, have been conditioned to where we can't trust each other or we can't patronize each other because we believe that we are inferior. We are not intelligent enough to do some of the things that other people does. We've been educated that we're not intelligent enough to do these types of things, and everything that's been taught to us in these books have been negative, right? But these are some of and like I said, even with these groups, I say look at these groups. Like you got the online support groups, Black homeschooling families. In any school situation, is necessary to connect with others with the internet. This is easier than ever. Connect with the African American schooling families in these online Black homeschooling groups. You have the Afrocentric Homeschooler Association. It is a Facebook group, Black homeschooling families. It focuses, it's focused, who are focused on Afrocentric homeschooling curriculum. You got Black Homeschooler Connection. It's a it's a Facebook-based group for homeschoolers that identify as Black, African American, melanated, biracial mix, Aboriginals, etc. And I'll read a couple of more, but like I'm saying, even with these support groups, what I'm saying, you still have to be careful because even with us, we have become biased in our own ways. We don't understand proper research methodology. We are lazy and want everybody to just tell us what it is, and we regurgitate what those say, especially if they sound highly intelligent and speak with proper rhetoric. Then they must know what they're talking about. So we're going to regurgitate everything that they say. But I'm just saying you have to be careful because and I'll just going back to this in here where it says the Aboriginals. I don't know in that perspective how they are being taught. I don't know if this Black homeschooling connection, one of their curriculums where they're talking about Aboriginals. I don't know if they're talking about that we are the Aboriginals and we have always been here in we always been here in America. We the real Native Americans. So I don't know if that's what that Aboriginal thing is, what they're talking about. But if it is, I wouldn't want my child. I'm just speaking for me. I wouldn't want my child being taught that because I understand that we hadn't always been here in America. America was up under a sheet of ice at one time, and you study the Bering Strait, you can understand that those people who came across walked across the Bering Strait over here, that their ancestry goes back to Asia. There is a their ancestry goes back to Asia, Asiatic stock. That is their ancestry, not African. You know what I'm saying? And even when those people who was caught coming from those different parts of Asia, they was trapped on the Bering Strait for a period of time, again, because the Americas was up under a sheet of ice at one particular. But I mean, that's a whole other story. But so it's just different things. So I know a lot of things. If they're teaching that, I know that it's not true. I know that part is not true. So I don't know. So you just have to be careful with, what support group you want, what curriculum that you want to, um, you want to have to teach. Homeschooling for Black Free Thinkers is a Facebook-based group of non-religious and free-thinking people in our Black communities who currently homeschool and are thinkers about homeschooling. The Liberated Minds Institute is an educated group focused on helping inspire the empowered throughout the African diaspora around the globe. There is a well-trusted and popular use resources for Black homeschooling families and African-centered education. They hold the Liberated Minds Black Homeschoolings and the Education Expo to help Black homeschoolers create a network of support. Mocha Moms is a support group for mothers of color. Excuse me. They do welcome people of all religious, races, educational background, and income levels, as long as the members support the mission and the group. So the state-based Black homecoming school support. Online isn't the only place for African American schools to find support. Below are a few states based on groups to help your locally. So those were the ones that was online for those who may be thinking, who might want to reach out to some of these support groups who can push you in the right direction. Because when you're homeschooling, there is a lot of stuff that goes into homeschooling, or even starting a homeschooling or online homeschooling, or not just particularly for your kids, but for your community in general. There are a lot of guidelines and stuff that must be met as well. But these are, if you in these area, Black homeschooling, this is a group of homeschooling parents in the DFW that are Black African Americans, Black homeschooling in Central Florida. This is in Central Florida. This group is started with the intention of finding families of color in the Central Floridas or the educators, their children at home, a place for support, motivation, and the comfort of sharing experience unique to the Black community and the education of our Black children. Establish your support, motivation, and hopefully endurance friendships. This group is not affiliated with any one religion and is open to people of all faiths. And and this group and this other online group, that it'll work with any group. And that's something that we have to get past too. I think that's blocking us a lot, is we're focused on what people are believing in. Like, I can't work with him if he's not a Christian, or I can't work with him because he's not a Muslim. I can't work with him because he's a Hebrew, or I can't work with him because he's not a Jew. I can't work with him because he's a Rastafarian. I can't work with him because he's not Pentecostal. Whatever. A lot of those things is blocking us from working with each other. And I know a lot of over religious people who could be farther in their businesses or in their organization or in their churches if they would put put their religious beliefs to the side, or practice it in your home, especially if we got a common goal as a people. Then we should work on whatever that is as a common goal as a people, and what you believe in, you do that in the comfort of your own home, in the comfort of your own institutions, which is your church, your mosque, or your synagogue are out there in the streets like the Hebrews do, you know, do that on your own time. If we have a collective mission, let's get together, focus on that mission, and do that mission. You know what I'm saying, and facilitate that mission. You know, DMV Black Homeschooler find resources, support information, activity, field trips, and Black homeschooling families, even multicultures in this group. Local, this is in Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia. So if you're in those areas, DMV Black Homeschooling. Ebony Homeschooler is a Christian homeschool support fellowship established a strength of encouraging African American homeschooling community. This is in Memphis, Tennessee. Ebony Homeschooler. Afrocentric schools curriculums. This is by Column Academy, provides online curriculum for children, kindergartens to 8th grade. This is a flexible African centered. They also provide homeschooling coaches. Sankofa Science Solution is a lab and in-field science program that focuses utilizing science that relevance in the 21st century learning. Books for Black homeschooling families. Right here, these are some textbooks. You're thinking about homeschooling or starting a homeschooling for your community or your neighborhood. Homeschool, alternate incorporated homeschool mindsets for the benefits of Black children in America. This is by Dr. Myasha Taylor and Haley Taylor Skilts. You have No Dreams Deferred, Why Blacks and Latino Families Are Choosing Homeschooling. But I don't even know the first name, but I'll say Chase. Educated Central to Success, but school systems in America are constantly and incisively failing Blacks and Latino children. You got blog and podcast for Black homeschooling family. Clever Changing is a blog and podcast by Ela. Ela is a stay-at-home mom who homeschool both her daughters. This blog helps give homeschool supports and ideals. Further reading in Black homeschooling is homeschooling the best option for African American children. Yes, Black people homeschool their kids too. The Radical Self-Reliance of Black Homeschooling. Simone Biles homeschooling helped her become a gold medical Olympic. Black families increasing choosing of homeschooling kids. So these are further things if you want to dig into and read. Here is something that you have to do. Let me see. I don't know if this you must start school in a year she is age. Now, I don't know if this was I can't remember, and I don't have it up here. Damn, I don't have it up here. Let me see if I can find it because I think it's on this page. Damn, compulsive school missing. But let's talk about this here. Your children start school in a year when he or she is being the age of 6 or before September the 1st. Therefore, your child must continue to attend school or comply with the homeschooling laws at least until the year he or she will age 17 or before September. The compulsive school attendance requirement also applies to children who are 5 years old or before September the 1st if they are enrolled in a full-day public school kindergarten program. The HSCDL believes that the parent-issued diplomas or transcripts should be sufficient to demonstrate the child has completed secondary education. However, even if your child is beyond compulsory school attendance age, they may be situated where you want to continue the following requirements at home educated options of Mississippi laws. Your child graduated to high school, filing a home education notice to keep attendance and records. The records may be required in some situations, such as obtaining a driver license, a child minor, enlisting military, applying colleges, or demonstrating eligibility of social benefits and your members of the LSDA and which like detail. And this here, and let me see. And this is like some of the stuff, like when you're talking about homeschooling, like, and then, they want to go to college. They want to get a license. These are some of the things that they will have to do if you homeschooling. And this is just, I looked up Mississippi. It's some more stuff on here about Mississippi on the proper way on how you withdraw your kids from school. You know what I'm saying? Because, again, by law, it's a law that you must have your children in school to get an education. This is This is law. And we know that certain school districts, school boards, and every school has an attendance policy. So, when you check your kids out of school, if you don't have a doctor school, whatever the case it is, or the school they missing, you know, school begins to get, seek out and see why your child didn't go to, the child is not in school, or why it's missing so many um days. Even the police in certain states can get involved in arresting the parents or coming into the parents' home and seeing why, because it is a law that you must have your children in school. So even when you're trying to create a homeschool, brick and mortar, online, or just homeschooling your kids, or bringing everybody child who can't homeschooling, there are certain procedures that you must take in order to homeschool your kids, and for them to facilitate and get other things when we're talking about license and uh, applying for college or applying to go to the military. Certain documents you must have to make sure that the children have met suitable proficiencies and whatever the curriculum is in your homeschooling, and you got all the proper documentations of how you registered in your homeschool and et cetera. It's a whole lot. It's like a ton of stuff. I didn't look it all. So, and it's just how to comply with Mississippi homeschooling laws. But you can put in up here, you can put in your own zip code, and it'll tell you how to withdraw. Let's see, how to withdraw your child from school. This is from Mississippi. So let's see how you withdraw your child from Mississippi. So again, it's got the thing where you can put in your zip code and it pull up how to withdraw your child from school in Mississippi. If you are starting homeschooling during the school year, or your child is currently enrolled in a public school, HSLDA recommend that you formally withdraw your child from that school. If you are to start homeschooling after the school year is over, your child is considered enrolled for the following year. We recommend that you withdraw your child before the next school year begins, so that the school does not mark your child as absent or tyrant. We invite you to become a member of the HSLDA to receive specific advice about withdrawing your child from school and the strategies to homeschool. Local schools may have specific forms or withdrawal procedures. HSLDA members are eligible to receive individual advice about whether complying with those procedures or advisable or required. Members can also use or sample letters of withdrawal from Mississippi located below to the correspondence or with school officials. We generally recommend that any correspondence with authorities be sent by certified mail. Return receipt requests keep copies of the withdrawal letters and any other paperwork or correspondence, and any green postal receipts for your personal records. If your child has never attended a public or private school, this section does not apply to you. Mississippi sample letters withdrawal from school to homeschooling. I'm not going to get into that, but you can hit that. But like I'm saying, you can always go and put in your zip code. You can put in your email, your zip code. You can put in your zip code and to pull up where you at, your state. What is the requirement of withdrawing from school? Then you can it even got some stuff on here how to actually get your homeschooling, your homeschooling started. You know what I'm saying? Certain documentations that you're gonna need, and etc. Man, I wanted to kind of jump around. I really wanted to finish that other article, man. It was so much stuff that they talked about that we could kind of touch on and talk about with the public schools. But, I've been on here long enough. Hold on, let me go back and let's see. We stop sharing. All right. But yeah, man, I just wanted to share some of those things with you, man, and put some stuff on your mind, and just ask the question, because the conversation kind of came back up again. And, I got to talking about the food system, the school system, and some of the experiences that I had with my son, far as the public school system, and some of the things that I'm actually seeing now in my community, with the school system, with the rates of dropouts of African Americans, you know, the agenda behind some of the public schools with the misdiagnosing children, and and the ins or out of the prison pipeline, special ed, more money if your children is enrolled. I mean, so I just want to kind of talk about a lot of those things, and bring up some of the bring up an article where this family or families were having some of the same concerns I was having, experiencing some of the same things that I was experiencing, and and trying to um change what we say about our to our kids. And I know it's kind of hard to do that when you say um son or daughter or children, go to school, get a good education, and get a good job. And that's what they want us to do. There's nothing wrong with a hard working man, but we have to start instilling into our children head that they are highly intelligent. You know what I'm saying? They come from an intelligent stock, and we can create our own opportunities for our own selves, our own financial freedom. We can be able to pass financial wealth down to our families as well. Utilize what we can utilize by going to their public schools if that's what you want to do, or if you're tired of your children being taught lies and their history being omitted, then the best thing might be for you is to figure out on how you can homeschool, which I just showed you many um support groups online and brick and mortar groups and places where you may be resolved, or another website where you can actually buy some of those books, and where they set a template in the curriculum, or where they already have a curriculum that's already working for them. And I want to shout out, Baba Amin, who has the Yahuru Academy. So we have people who have online and brick and mortar schools where they're trying to combat the misinformation in the public schools, and to teach our children that they are intelligent. You know what I'm saying? Teach them that their ancestors contribute a lot to the world. Teach and trying to empower them to go out into the world and be productive. Shout out to Q Butter as well. And I interviewed Bob, maybe a year and a half ago. Q Butter, I interviewed him about a year and a half ago. He has the Zion Institute. And he's teaching those children about STEM. He's teaching those science. He's teaching them a skill set, you know what I'm saying, an important skill set to have. So shout out to Q Butter and the Zion Institution. Baba Imhotep, who has the Kimoyo Shul, if I'm saying it right, Arcana. And it's another one that he's trying to get off the ground, which I think he's already got it off the ground. So he's also trying to combat some of the misinformation, the false information, the biased information. He is also trying to empower our children as well and teach them the correct history of our ancestors and what they actually did and contributed to the world. And who is Obafemi? He had shout out to him and his wife they was actually doing something to get theirs off the ground, but he told me something happened with the building. Let me see what the name of his name of it was, because I want to shout out to people who are actually trying to affect change in our community with our children, man, who actually have something. So there are people who actually are trying to do things. Then you have people, what I mean by have institution, they're not only trying to educate their children, but they're trying to educate children worldwide, so it does not have to be. So I think it was I think there was a kindergarten, K through 2. What was the name of his school? Oh, okay, they got a website too. Hold on. I think it was just called Sankofa. It won't let me click on the website. But I think the name of the school was called Sankofa, and they had a building, but he said something happened with them having a building. And I know I seen them painting and decorating and doing some stuff to try to make it, look pretty and colorful for these kids K through 12. But shout out to Obafemi and his wife as well for trying to do stuff. Yeah, Kofi's still talking. Sean. But yeah, I'm finna get out of here, man. I just wanted to share some information, man. Hope y'all appreciate it. Appreciated the bill, appreciated some of the information. Hope I was able to push some of y'all in the right direction or convince you to homeschool your kids, or or motivate you to try to combat some of the misinformation that our children, or even get you to just start your own self to try to do some research about some of the contributions our ancestors did, or the history, the proper history, of of Africans, what I'm saying, worldwide, So again, man, appreciate everybody, man, for tuning in. I want to say peace, you know what I'm saying? Black African power. I appreciate those who stayed the duration of the show. I appreciate those who popped in, popped out, popped back in, man. I appreciate it, man. We'll see you next time, man. Hopefully I can come back next week and do something. Y'all be on the lookout for my new book coming September the 30th. I'm gonna try to put together a show on the 30th. Be like a slight, probably a book release slash something. I wanted to try to get a lot of authors involved. I don't know what the show actually be called, but I'm gonna try to do it on the same day my book drop, and get different perspective from different people who have published who publish books, because I want to continue to try to push that's a promo run, man. We need to try to get a promo run. I said I was gonna probably try to reach out to some people and see if I can get a promo run and try to get on a couple of people YouTube channels, a couple of people podcasts, couple of people radio stations, man. But I got a video I probably drop next week I put together, and it's like a summary. It's like a summary of the book. So it's like a lot of visuals in this video, but it's actually explaining to you in a visual form of what the whole totality of what the book is. And then I got a commercial that I'm going to shoot. I'm actually going to shoot it in 2 weeks. So I'm gonna shoot one part in Brookhaven. I'm gonna shoot another part in Jackson, and I'm gonna shoot another part in Hattiesburg. So I got the location in Hattiesburg. I got the location here. I just got to lock in a location in Jackson, which I got a place where which would probably be the African Art Gallery. So it'll probably be at the African Art Gallery in Jackson. Then I got a place in Hattiesburg, and then a place here that I'm going to actually do something, and it's quick scenes. I kind of got an ideal, nothing too elaborate. So that commercial be coming after the book actually dropped. So yeah, man, just be on the lookout, man. For the book, man. And like I said, it's gonna be a good conversation piece, because it's actually talking about a subject that we don't normally talk about with or the practice that specific practice within slavery, the Atlantic slave trade and the Saharan slave trade. And we're gonna look at the psychology behind both of those practices between the Arabs and the Europeans, some other stuff, man. But y'all just be on the lookout for that. It's September the 30th. Hopefully we'll put the show together. Oh, and I already got something lined up. I'll be on Instagram. My brother got a show on Instagram where he interviewed a lot of authors. I can't think of the name of the show right now, but I'll be on there like a week after the book come out, where I'll be talking about the book and some other stuff that I'm working on and the team working on, and some of the stuff that we already done worked on. But again, man, peace and Black African power. Hold on, let me go here. I can go back over here. And man, I'm out of here, man. I will play some music by me. Oh yeah, and the commercial gonna be produced by me. Music gonna be produced by me. And this video that I got coming that explaining this visuals, just visuals of what the book is. I got a dope rapper. Man, this dude dope as hell, man. I need to get some more of his music, but he dope as hell, man. But he allowed me to use some music, his music for the music actually, man, the music actually goes with the video that I actually put together, or the visual that I put together for the book, explaining some of the details behind the books and some of the stuff that he was rapping. Some of the visuals is damn sure is in line with what I'm actually talking about. But this brother dope. And I'll tell you more about that brother. And hopefully we'll be able to do some music together as well. But man, shoot, I'm out of here, man. Y'all have a good Sunday, man. Peace, Black African Power. Appreciate y'all, man, for tuning in, man.
It's in the place, we all get a share. Niggas gon' hate, do I look like I care? I was dealing with pain, frustrated with life. How many were there? Thanks to the few for staying true. I owe this to you. It all comes with paying your dues. Some couldn't walk a day in my shoes. Light on my feet, never lie in the ass. You hummingbirds can't say you're bumping word and way out of your class. Oh, do I share? Y'all master degrees. Life is a test, every day is a task. Progress to your best, give it all that you have. Rip up the block, peel the paint off the ass. Never lose sight of your goals. I made diamonds from doubt. Turn my grief into gold. My destiny was set in stone. They selling ass and selling souls. Hands off Asada, hands off my pocket. You know that chopper, body's probably rocket blocker. All they heard was bow, bow, bow. Sound like Waka Flocka. Straight to the top about it, ain't no doubt about it. Best believe we on the road. No limit, so we body, chiefing on a whole lot of woe. Number one with a bullet, no. Similarly, boost hit the function, we Hennessy. I feel like 96 Tennessee. Yeah, ho, I'm on they head, fo. Always ignoring the sound. Now I put more in they mouth. Don't call me a king when y'all giving whores the crown. Y'all niggas watered down in me. I'm prohibitionary liquor. I'm like a 9 on the Richter, sublime state of mind, no ordinary nigga.